Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are still awake. I'm Eduardo Castillo. I'm a professor of architecture at the Technical University of Madrid in Spain, and the new director of TBA21-Academy. I want to start thanking the Busan Museum of Art and the organizer of the Future Museum Forum, Student Sugaso, for the invitation. And today, give me a second. I would like to talk about what we've been calling, we have been calling tentacular museology, right? Which is a way of thinking and doing that treats the museum not only as a site of conservation or display of artworks, but as an active infrastructure capable of reconfiguring the very landscapes of which it operates. It's very sensitive. So first, a little bit of TBA21 is our foundation founded over 20 years ago by collector and philanthropist Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza that supports international artists and promotes the production of contemporary art. The foundation fosters, to support artists and artistic projects guided by a strong belief in art as a catalyst for social, cultural, and environmental transformations. But if TBA21 is the foundation's core platform for contemporary artistic production, then the Academy, which is I'm here to explain what we do, is kind of the research-driven antidisciplinary counterpart, right? It's a space for experimentation, critical inquiry, and what we call infrastructural activism. It was founded in 2011. The Academy since then has grown into a transdisciplinary initiative dedicated to exploring urgent issues through a combination of art, science, policy, and activism. Rather than programming exhibitions around predefined topics, we build alliances, support long-term collaborations, and prototype new models of research-driven artistic practices. At the core of our work, it is the hydrosphere, known as the planetary water system in all its forms and scales. And from there, we move inwards sometimes to the ocean and outward sometimes to deal with its expanded ecologies and the broader systems that become entangled with it. So why do we talk about new museologies, right? Well, we have been seeing many different approaches along the day, but it's because in our case, we believe that museums need a shift from being defined by what they hold to being defined by what they enable. The idea is not to replace the collection, of course not, museums will continue to preserve works, but the shift, the idea is to shift the center of gravity, moving away from a museum defined primarily by collections and safeguarding objects to one defined by co-producing knowledge, prototypes, and actions alongside other actors. But to do that, that requires addressing the public not as a passive visitor, which is the second kind of strategy, right? But as an active communities involved in those processes of co-production, helping shape the questions, formats, and interests that drive the museum forward. And finally, it also involve understanding the museum, as we just saw in the previous presentation, not as a standalone place or site, but as part of a larger network of actors, environments, and struggles. So how do we reach that shift, right, necessary for a new museology? Well, in our case, we're guided by 4 principles. The first one is a situated approach. We begin always with context, working from specific territories, ecologies, and social dynamics. Second, interinstitutional alliances. We think and work with others, and that for us is very important. We believe that change can only happen if we break our island and work together. And third, co-production and prototyping. We create frameworks for collective inquiry and proactive collaboration between artists, territories, and their communities. And fourth, but not least, regenerative metrics, which is that we measure our impact not by the visibility or attendance of people to what we do, but how the projects that we push forward contribute to ecological and social regeneration, right? In the following presentation, I will try to briefly introduce 3 initiatives that we are currently doing that build upon these 3 principles. So one of each of the 3 sites from which we operate, I'm gonna explain one issue for each of these sites. TBA21 Academy functions across 3 different nodes. One is anchored in Madrid, the other is in Venice, and the other is kind of nomadic, right? It moves across different geographies through expeditions and collaborative programs. So let's start with Madrid. In Madrid, our work is based inside the Thyssen-Bornemisza National Museum that you will listen later. It's one of Spain's major public art museums, alongside museums such as Prado, Reina Sofia, of course, MACBA. And it receives close to 1 million visitors each year. And like many major museums today, it's shaped by the pressures of cultural tourism, institutional metrics, and visibility-driven programming, right? In recent years, the exponential growth of tourism in Madrid has created a growing disconnection between the museum and its local context. Part of our work at the Academy involves addressing this gap, testing how a museum like the Thyssen can re-engage with its audiences in a more meaningful and transformative way for the city. So in order to do that, 2 years ago, we launched an experimental program called Organismo. Organismo is, again, an infrastructural activism initiative developed by TBA21-Academy in collaboration with the Thyssen-Bornemisza National Museum. And it's a program that transformed the museum in a center of an entangled network of institutions with overlapping inquiries, bringing together research, theory, and speculation. The program is structured around applied case studies. Each case provides access to a specific forms of knowledge and their interrelated actors and communities with the aim of activating processes of territorial transformation. What is important is that each of these cases of Organismo, it's built around 3 core components. The first place is a group of institutions. Like each case brings together between 3 to 4 institutions with shared interests and concerns. Like there's more than 20 institutions so far that we have been collaborating with, including national museums, research centers, independent cultural spaces, public foundations, universities, among many others. Each institution brings a different kind of expertise, but also a different kind of infrastructure, right? And perspective, and helps shape both the content and methodology of each case based on their own urgencies, needs, and shared concern with us, but also among themselves. The second component of each case is a research agenda. Usually a complex ecological, social, or territorial issue that requires cross-disciplinary engagement. The theme sets the scope of the inquiry and connects global concern with local urgencies within the territory of Spain. I will give you 3 examples of topics we are addressing. Like, for example, we are addressing the ongoing touristification of natural and urban environments, which is right now one of the most critical issues within Spain, looking at how tourism-driven economies reshape territories and communities. For example, this case, we are working with Casaplanas, which is a foundation in Mallorca, but also with the Ministry of Architecture and Urban Agenda of Spain, right? Another line of inquiry focused, for example, on computation and its impact. We saw a little bit of Bladan Joller and Kate Crawford piece before, right? Understanding computation both at the ecosystemic level, but also in the construction of new governance frameworks allowed by planetary scale computation, right? In this case, for example, we're working with the Barcelona Supercomputing Center in Barcelona, sorry. And third one, we also have worked with cases dealing with, for example, like energy extractivism and possible bioremediation strategies for degraded natural environments, right? Linked to those extractivism, particularly in the north of Spain, which is a very energy intensive kind of part of the, 5 minutes, okay. But also other topics, okay. So I'm gonna go more quickly. And the third is an element, third element of each case is a working unit, like formed by practitioners from different fields and backgrounds who bring different forms of knowledge and positionality into the process. Like artists are always in the forefront. We think that artists should lead these processes of ecological transformation due to their capacity to think differently. And that's why each working unit always involves an invited artist who works related closely to the theme and that acts as pulses or leaders of the different case studies. There are some of the artists that we have been working on during the last few years. But the rest of the agents of each unit are selected through a public and international open call. Like each cohort brings together a mix of backgrounds and positions, keeping the group deeply interdisciplinary. Like we have artists, but also biologists, architects, filmmakers, writers, designers. We are not only necessarily selecting the best individual profiles, but actually we curate the group, right? We select those profiles that makes the best group for that specific case. Once the group is assembled, we initiate a shared working process that usually unfolds over several months or years. This includes seminars, fieldwork, assemblies, workshop, each one adapted to the specific theme, location, and constellation of participants involved. The idea is not to move toward a defined final solution, right? But to generate a framework to confront the challenges otherwise. What is also interesting is that the process carried out by the different groups are also shared with a wider audience through the public programs of the museum, right? So instead of making our public programs around the exhibitions that the museum holds, we do the public programs around this initiative and these case studies. And in doing that, we open up, and we extend the communities of each case with a wider audience that sometimes they join this case study and continue the process of collective thinking and co-creation with the initial group. So I don't think I'm going to have time for the three of them, but I will try to go very quick. Let me see. So the second node is a nomadic one. I'm going to go to the third one first, and then I will leave Venice for the last one. And it's called The Current, right? The Current was launched in 2015, and it's a fellowship program, a research cycle, and a curatorial engine all in one. It is structured in multi-year cycles of 3 years, and the program creates a framework for situated inquiry into oceanic questions connected to a specific region of the Earth ocean. So far, we have done 4 cycles of the program. Each cycle of The Current focuses on a different region. We have done like Oceania, Pacific, Mediterranean, or Caribbean. And each one of the cycles is led by a different curator selected by TBA21-Academy. What is interesting is that at the same time, during each cycle, each curator nominates a series of artists, scientists, environmentalists, and other transdisciplinary actors to join a collective research project unfolding over 3 years. What's compelling about The Current is that each cycle is unique, shaped by the curator's vision and grounded in specific geographies, audiences, and relationships. Rather than following a fixed format, it unfolds organically, embracing complexity, context, and care. It always involves, though, a deeply situated approach by engaging with local communities of those contexts, of course, artists working on those contexts, but also local experts as well, linked to the core theme addressed by the cycle itself. And during the 3 years, the project also unfolds through different activations or evolutions within the communities it engaged with. Also, the whole initiative is documented and shared through a kind of a bitácora or collective logbook, which is our Ocean Archive, right? Which is an experimental archival platform that TBA21-Academy is currently pursuing. But also, sometimes it crystallizes in different kind of material outcomes, like works of different natures, formats, and rhythm. And increasingly, it has become a kind of tradition that some of the artists participating in the cohort end up materializing part of their shared experience in an exhibition format at Ocean Space. But it's not a summary of the or a retrospective of the whole 3-year cycle, but more like a one final node or one final strand of it. And let's go very quickly to the final node, which is Venice, that I just foreshadowed, which is Ocean Space, right? Ocean Space is TBA21-Academy's public-facing venue in Venice. It is located in the Church of San Lorenzo, which is a deconsecrated Baroque building that, after decades of abandonment, was reactivated by us in 2019, has a space for art, research, and ocean literacy. Was abandoned for decades. In 2016, the city of Venice granted TBA21 the use of the church under the condition that it will be restored and reopened as a cultural center, free and open to the public and dedicated to serving the city's communities. So in 2019, it was reopened, and since then, it has functioned as a museological hall, but also has a platform for interdisciplinary practice, research, and public engagement. One interesting anecdote is that we keep Ocean Space open just during a few months every year. Some were between April and November because we deliberately decided to not have artificial climatization on the space. So those are the only months on which we can operate from there without freezing to death. But I think it's at some level a sort of a statement of how we operate. Over the last 5 years, we have hosted a wide range of exhibitions, assemblies, screenings, and public programs that are deeply connected to the fieldwork and research carried out by the Academy across different geographies. And since then, we have slowly consolidated as a space of reference not only for Venice, but within Venice, and established a meaningful ongoing collaboration and connections with local communities and institutions through debates, workshops, and educational programs. And the thing is that over this time, we have begun to rethink how this space can be used differently, not just to host events or exhibitions, but to support continuous applied and collaborative work. What we're envisioning now for the next few years in the future is to transform ocean space in a kind of eco-social laboratory for the lagoon, working in consortium with multiple academic, scientific, and cultural institutions, together with communities and the citizens of Venice. And we want to transform into a space where many of the infrastructural activism practices developed by the Academy over the years can be applied to the specific ecological and urban context of Venice. Venice, with its fragile ecosystem and complex urban dynamics, embodies many of the issues we are concerned with at the intersection of human territories and critical ecologies. It offers a concrete context in which to test how cultural institutions can reposition themselves not just as spaces for creating awareness or discourse, but as active agents embedded in processes of environmental reparation. That requires, of course, to work slowly and to work in alliance with local communities, institutions, and groups. What we are aiming for the coming years is not to launch a new initiative, but to totally rethink what an existing cultural space can and maybe should actually be. Not just a venue for periodic programming, but an active site for sustained collaborative research and long-term engagement. The challenge is to act from within the constraints of the institution itself, using existing tools and alliances, to engage more directly with the realities that we are part of, and to do so in ways that are situated, careful, and open-ended. And I will leave it right there. Thank you so much.